On today's episode, we're sitting down with three of York District's finest for part one of our Masonic Roundtable.
You're listening to The First Three Knocks, a Masonic podcast in the District of York, where we discuss topics for the betterment of Masonry. The opinions discussed in this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent the views of Grand Lodge or any other Masonic body. Now, here are your hosts.
Well, good evening, brethren. Welcome to the Aurora Temple. I am your co-host, Worshipful Brother Bert Tellier, along with Brother Gino Scovio and Brother Steve Sprott, our producer. And very excited, we are kicking off part one of our Masonic Roundtable today, and we have three very special guests that are with us this evening to talk about some Masonic topics. Right Worshipful Brother John Trotter, past District Deputy Grand Master of York District. We have Very Worshipful Brother George Pohl, past Grand Steward. And we also have Very Worshipful Brother Bruce Bellows from the Rising Sun Lodge. You two gentlemen, of course, are from Wellington Lodge and have come all the way up north to Aurora to spend some time with us this evening. We very much appreciate it. Maybe, gentlemen, you can just tell us a little bit about your Masonic experience and journey so far. Brother Right Worshipful.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm thrilled to be here. I think it's a magnificent thing to be doing and for you, brethren, to be doing. My Masonic journey started in the early 1980s. And when I joined the craft, I joined with my father on the same night. My father had thought he was going to become a Mason in the early days of World War II, but the war got in the way. And then years and years got in the way. And although he always had a high regard for the craft, he never did join. And years went by, and then it was decided by a mutual friend, a friend of the family, that that's what should be done. And my father and I joined on the same night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and three of us actually applied to the lodge to join at the same time, and three of us took our third degree at the same time, and that was George's brother-in-law, actually, Jim Bell. So my father and Jim Bell and I applied to the lodge at the same time, and my father and I went through the degrees. I do have to say that my father's been gone a long time. I did do the proving for him. He felt he was too old to join the craft, but that made it very, very special.
I guess
the idea that he still held Masonry in high regard, even though he had not joined, and he was a great supporter. He did enjoy watching me go through the chairs. He never did, and of course become master. And it was a wonderful thing for me to look back on. Everybody's got a different experience in how they joined the craft. I don't think that a lot of people did what I did.
No, that's unusual.
That's very unique. Absolutely.
Yeah, very
experience.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And like I say, the three of us went through together. Jim was going through a difficult time. He had a very sick wife, George's sister, and she eventually passed at a very early age. Caused a lot of trauma for all of us, and of course for George. He'll tell you about that, I'm sure. But that's how I got involved.
Fantastic. Very worshipful, sir.
Well, very worshipful George Pohl. Again, I'm very, very happy to be here and part of this. And my journey started, as John alluded to, in a period of my life. I was very young. I put my application in at the age of 21. We were going through a difficult period of time in our lives with my sister passing. But John and my sister and my brother-in-law Jim had a very strong and close friendship. And the fact that the two of them went in prior to that sort of led me in the direction of Masonry. And it's one of the things that taught me to follow people that you believe in into the craft, people that are upstanding citizens and do the right thing. It's worth following them into the craft. And one of the things that has helped me immensely is it gave me something to focus on to get through the grieving process. I joined the lodge and I was terribly, terribly shy. I wouldn't be able to say my name in front of 3 people.
That is hard to believe.
And today, Masonry has let me grow in the ability of public speaking and an understanding of the ritual and the craft itself. That I've been blessed with being asked to join a couple of Grand Lodge committees. First and foremost, it was the Protocol and Etiquette Committee, and I currently serve on the Grand Lodge of Instruction, touring the province to teach the mechanics to the craft at large. And it's been a terrific growing experience, not only in helping me sort of get away from my shyness, but also to help me organize, become a better time manager, and organize my thoughts to be able to do public speaking.
Brilliant. Great overview. Very worshipful Brother Bruce Bellows.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening with all you guys. I was introduced to Masonry by some very, very well-renowned people. And that was 20 years ago now. How time flies. I had a neighbor who was very active in the craft, in the shrine, various other bodies. And that was my experience firsthand with Masonry. I remember coming home from work, we were a family with 4 kids, all little kids at the time, so life was busy. And he also ran his own business, which kept him quite busy. But he found the time to do the things that were important. And one of the things I remember greatest was he would have a friend come to his house periodically with the Shriner's van, and they would get themselves together and go pick up this boy who lived up in Barrie, who'd suffered through a horrendous fire, was badly burned. And they took him on a regular basis back and forth to the burn unit in Boston. And they did this for quite a while. It just showed me the ability to just give and to do things for no reason other than to just give. And that to me struck me quite a bit on the generosity of people.
Right.
And from that time on, I could think of no better organization to be associated with. And it took me a few years before I found the time and everything to join myself. But it's an experience that I never ever questioned. It's still one of the best things I ever did in my life. And as I concur with George, when I joined, I too could barely stand up and speak in front of everybody.
Also hard to believe.
And it's something that, with a little bit of experience, people start to come out of their shell. One of the things that I've feel very fortunate with is the number of people that I've been able to help in Lodge as they enter as new Masons and helping them learn their work. And it's just the pride that you get from seeing them do the best they can. And I'm sure I was surrounded by people who felt the very same when I was coming through. I've had tremendous number of mentors here in the craft, and really that's what the craft is about. It's the helping of one another, and you just continue to pay it forward.
Yeah.
It's really been a fabulous experience in my life, one that forever grateful for.
Well, that's 3 very different and unique stories of how you joined Masonry, and I think it almost kind of sounds like brotherly love, relief, and truth all combined into one. So
there's that design thing again, right?
Kind of ironic, I would say. So we put a sort of a question out to these fine gentlemen, brethren, And the topic we wanted to discuss and sort of debate and kick around a little bit tonight was ritual work. And what is the significance of the work was a question we put to you guys, and why is it significant? So who would like to start?
We probably can all start at the same time. It's the ritual being significant is a very, very wide and deep topic. It can do what George spoke about. It can give you the ability to concentrate on something instead of worrying about the fact that you're shy. It gives you a script to work from. And you can say to yourself, when I get up in lodge, I at least will have something to say. So I'm going to learn the working tools. And when I get up in lodge, the working tools will come out. I don't have to craft some thoughts. I don't have to be a public speaker. I'm not trying to be Winston Churchill. I can get up and deliver words that mean something to someone who wants to hear them, to the next candidate, to the guy that I was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And the ritual allows that. The ritual also allows you to exercise your own memory. And I tell you, I've seen an awful lot of good ritualists over the years who are quite an age. Maybe not able to walk much, but they can still do the ritual. It's something to work at. It's low impact aerobics for the mind. And you're able to say, yeah, and I mean, I love making sure that my ritual is right. I don't think there's too many people that have seen me stand up in lodge and butcher any ritual. But it takes work.
Yeah.
So you must commit to it. George says part of it was being time management. Because if you've got a piece to do in a month and you decide to not even try to learn it for 3 weeks, you're going to find out that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And as
the hard way.
Everybody's heard me say many times, there's no substitute for preparation.
Yeah.
And if you stand up in lodge and you didn't do your prep work, everybody's going to know it.
Yeah. You get to pay the price for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you do stand up in lodge and deliver the ritual well, everybody knows that too. And those are just a couple of things. Then you get into the idea of the meaning of the ritual. There's so much ritual that if you learn it, you discover those hidden meanings. You say, oh, wow, that's what that means.
The dots get connected.
They get connected very, very well.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to go into lodge and listen to other people deliver ritual. But when you have to learn it, all of a sudden you say, wow, the working tools make some more sense than they once did.
There's something very unique about the ritual, the words themselves, learning the work, and the physical aspect of doing the work in lodge. There's some sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but strange connection that happens. This has been my experience with ritual, is if it's different to do it in your car, which we all probably do a lot, and then to deliver it in lodge has a completely different meaning.
Absolutely true. But over time, it allows you to, like George said, like Bruce said, come out of your shell.
Yeah.
Did I mention that I was shy once too?
Well, I also find that
Yeah,
hard
but
to
we
believe.
didn't believe it.
I did mention
You may have said it.
Oh, I didn't say it. No, I didn't say it because I knew nobody would believe it.
No, John, well, this is a serious podcast. Let's not have too much fabrication get into it.
I see.
The ritual itself is a beautiful work of prose. It sounds nice. It's written well. They have a conservation of words that in without using too many, they have a concise meaning of what they're trying to explain. And we're taught that in Masonry, every item in the lodge room is a symbol, and there's a meaning to it. All of that is described in the ritual. So if you take it to heart and you learn it and you understand it, as you said, it connects the dots. It allows you to have a deeper understanding of what I'm going to call the Masonic philosophy: brotherly love, relief, and truth. Once you have a big body of work in your mind that you're able to sort of refer to, it seeps into your everyday thinking and becomes part of your everyday practice. And it makes it a lot easier. It becomes a habit to follow the Masonic principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth.
And just to put that in perspective, the guy that just said that knows every part of the Black Book and the Blue Book from memory. He knows it all.
Well,
So
I want to stop on that for a second because my wife said to me last week as I was working on a piece, "Don't you know this stuff by now? Shouldn't you?" And I said, "No, I don't, and I'm not sure I ever will. But it's nice to know that it's possible." I guess that's the key
Lots of
point.
practice.
It does get there, but it takes an awful lot of work, as John said. It takes a lot of repetition. And I've been inspired by some interesting mentors and great Masons, individuals like Scotty Hamilton and Eric Holt, who have an ability with ritual that is astounding. For years, go walk into a lodge room and as every master has learned, somebody, for whatever reason, may not be able to show up and do that part. And these two guys end up getting tapped on the shoulder at the last second and say, "Would you mind doing this piece?" And I thought, isn't that kind of nice to be able to have that ability? And then encouraged through the year that John was District Deputy Grand Master, he started telling everybody that I knew every piece of the work, even though at that point in time I didn't really.
A little bit of help.
So I started to get to work at it a little bit more.
Well, let me get the DeLorean out for a minute and tell you that I can remember George before he was master going to official visits. And as you all know, second degree is normal for an official visit. And even back then even, he would quite normally be asked to do the secrets in the second degree then.
Right.
And it's not as though people not showing up is a new thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is there a piece you know better than the second secrets in the second?
Well,
Maybe the dark work.
in the last little while, I've gotten pretty handy with the general charge of
Yeah,
installation.
yes, I forgot about
For
that.
installation.
You've done that over 100 times.
Yeah.
As we travel around and we hear these people do these different pieces of ritual, I think one of the things that struck me is that on any given night, you're going to learn something new. It's very, very odd that you come out of a lodge room, at least me personally, it's very odd that I come out of a lodge room and didn't learn something that night. And I may have heard that piece of ritual 100 times, but somebody else is going to present it just a little bit different, and you're going to get a different meaning out of it.
Or perhaps more meaning.
More meaning.
Not a different
good,
meaning,
good.
but
Yeah,
more
yeah,
meaning.
more
Yeah.
meaning. That's a better way to phrase it. And really, to me, that's what the ritual is all about: is what we teach ourselves, what we convey to others. We're here as teachers.
One of the things about the ritual that I'm a great believer in is it's not a secret. Too many Masons think, oh, nobody can hear the ritual except us. We have secrets, but we don't have many. They're a few what we could describe as code words or actions. But the Masonic Black Book is written in plain text. And the prose are wonderful. They really are. And they're well worth the world knowing. And it's the internet. We're on the internet today. The internet's got it all anyway.
Find it all.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, even before the internet, it was written in plain text in books for publication. They were in the library.
Yeah, it wasn't saved for the internet, age of the internet.
I can remember when I was brand new to the craft, and I went to the Toronto Lending Library, a huge operation in Toronto. I love libraries. And checked. You couldn't check any books out. It was the research library. I can't take a book out. And I found a book called Darkness Visible. Darkness Visible, it was called. And maybe it's still out there. Everything in it.
Yeah.
Everything.
Now, was that a ritual book
Nope.
or just a
It was
just
a
book?
It was a book
Masonic
that somebody had written about masonry called Darkness Visible. And if you wanted to read everything about the craft, everything. Pretty accurate. And so I worry about people that say, oh, we have these secrets and we can't talk about masonry. It's been my experience that the people that don't want to talk about masonry and say it's because there's secrets are people that are uncomfortable talking about Masonry. They don't really know what to say about Masonry. They don't, although they feel it in their heart, they don't know how to communicate it to others, and certainly not to strangers. They don't know how to have a little riff about how great the craft is and why. They don't want to say, like Bruce said, about his experience and why these people he looked up to, what they did. They just want to, they go for the easy thing. And the easy excuse is, it's a secret, I can't talk about it. I can't tell you, which is a horrible thing. And there's a lot of pretty good Masons that say, it's a secret. Instead of saying, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine that knows how to answer that question.
Do you think, though, that's part of maybe some of the more senior gentlemen, that it's just the traditional way that they were brought up in Masonry, that it's that closed lodge, it's just for us, and we don't know how to share it, so we don't. And if they want to know, fill out an application, come to the door, and we'll teach you that way.
It's more so the people that were years ago,
Right.
The ones that I knew in the early days, and there were some that were great as well.
Yeah,
but a lot of them weren't comfortable with the conversation. That's the trick. The trick for all of us. That's why what we're doing tonight, I think is magnificent. Bert, I was talking to you earlier about what the craft was like when I joined. The buildings didn't have signs.
Yeah.
Okay, there were no signs on the building. And as master, I got into a lot of trouble when I was master. In '92, I held an open house in a lodge.
What are you doing?
Why?
Wait a minute. What's going on
People
here?
complained to Grand Lodge.
Yeah.
I had to call the press. I had an interview with the newspaper, complete with pictures and information. And again, people complained because they said, you can't do that. And I said,
unheard of
why?
these days.
Oh, it was absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
And an open house, people, non-Masons in a blue room? Oh, this can't be done. And I said, why not? I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I see in you guys. You're proud of the craft. I'm thrilled that you're proud of the craft, because that's what will make the craft continue. You guys will be able to explain to people what Masonry is.
I think that was a big turning point here in North America when people started coming out and acknowledging how proud they were to be a Mason. Whereas a generation or even 2 generations ago, they wouldn't even acknowledge that they were a Mason, let alone the pride thing.
Well, I don't know about not acknowledging they were Masons, but it certainly wasn't something that was talked about a lot. But a lot of it was because people didn't know how to.
Right.
Yep.
Nobody told them. One of the things, when I was on the Grand Lodge Mentor Committee for a few years, and one of the things we talked about, we did videos that are on the Grand Lodge website that I wanted people to be able to watch. I explored how other Grand Lodges around the world were opening their doors, not closing them. Mm-hmm. I also looked at some Grand Lodges that were closing their doors.
And how that was working.
Oh, that didn't work well at all. I believe the ritual, this to tie back into this about ritual, the ritual is tremendously important. We can bring virtually anyone into the craft, and the ritual will cure any problems they've got or drive them off if they're not a good fit. I don't have any problem with bringing people in. You and I, again, spoke earlier. When I was District Deputy Grand Master, we were beginning the process of bringing in candidates through the internet. And people said, you can't bring candidates in from the internet. Nobody knows them. I said, well, the ritual will look after that problem. Mm-hmm. And in today's day and age, we don't have little wee communities. We don't have towns of 2,000 people where you're going to know everybody. I mean, I was well known in my community. I get it. That's certainly true. But today, it's not that way.
Well, today we don't even want to meet our neighbors. We go home after a hard day's work. We shut the door, and we don't even say hi in passing.
Well,
and so that's
I don't think that would be true with you. I'm sure you do.
No, not at all.
I'm sure
cut
you
my
do.
neighbor. We all we live on a really nice street here. But again, people got that fast-paced life today, and they really don't have the time or understand really what community is and means like it used to be. And so Masonry can offer that. And so what? We come through some of the internet portals sometimes. We're proud that our show has actually attracted some people throughout the world and have said, we've always thought of Masonry. Can you help point us? And we've sent them to their Grand Lodges in their parts of the world.
But that's the point I want to make.
Exactly
the ritual will cure any problem. We've had some bad people in the craft over the years, long before the internet
They
was
get all
produced.
sorted out through the ritual.
And that's exactly right. The ritual will, as Bruce said, educate them
Yeah.
to thoughts they've maybe never had.
Yeah.
You know, that's the goal. George is right. It'll make a better public speaker. This is the number one self-help group in the world.
The original.
The original.
original.
We're the.
That's right.
We are the great grandfather of all service clubs.
Yeah.
We have a ton to be proud of. I'm even thrilled with our enemies. Anybody that wants to be against Freemasonry gets to sit with Adolf Hitler, the Ayatollah Khomeini, and Joseph Stalin. That's whose side they're on.
Yeah.
I'm on the side of our gentle craft. Wonderful. The number of people that I've met over the years that are unbelievable quality, including those sitting in this room. How would I have done it without the craft?
Absolutely.
One of the,
I was going to say, once you get a good understanding of the ritual and how Masonry works, and you know, maybe even onto concordant bodies and that sort of thing, you have a certain amount of pride about the organization that you belong to. And it's important that if you have developed that sense of pride and you have a little bit of knowledge, that you can go out and explain Masonry to the great unwashed, for lack of a better way of putting it. There are an awful lot of mistruths out there on the internet that people talk about. And unless they're part of our organization, they really don't know which is true and which is false. There's stories from both sides out there. But it's important for us to be able to understand what we're about, what our mission is, and to explain it so that people at large understand what Masonry truly is about, without any falsehoods.
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed poking around on the internet and various blogs and forums and that is that when you're reading somebody's interpretation of what we are and what we do, you can tell right away whether they're a Mason or not.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can tell. You can tell that they haven't joined the craft. They haven't experienced.
Gone
They're
through.
just going by something that somebody said to them, and it could have been fourth rendition down the line.
Yeah.
How things get switched around. But just to circle back a little bit regarding getting candidates through the internet, here at the Rising Sun, we've been lucky enough to get a number of candidates through the internet. And when they came to us, they're right. People are right. We didn't know them.
Mm-hmm.
But we get together, we have a barbecue, we go out for breakfast every month, and we invite them along. It's as much as them getting to know us as us getting to know them.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've suffered at all from that experience.
No.
If anything,
nor will we.
the candidate who comes in cold, not knowing anybody and not really knowing what to expect, that's the one we have to work harder to embrace and get into the craft. Because they're coming in with one expectation, and reality may be totally different.
Well, the point is they seek us out, and that's why I was very happy when Grand Lodge said, "Let's do it through the internet. Let's allow that."
Yeah.
And a lot of people said, "No."
Oh, I could just imagine.
Yeah. But see, they were thinking of a period of time long gone to history when the Masonic Lodge in your town, the Blue Room, was over top of the bar, the local tavern.
Right.
So of course there's what's going on upstairs. Well, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna find out.
Or it's over top at a hardware store.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 100 odd years ago. So it was possible to have that interest. People saying, "Oh, I'm interested," or "What's going on upstairs?" And that doesn't happen now. It's very, very difficult to have happen. Yeah, you can have, Uncle Fred, he's a Mason, and I live in a different town than Uncle Fred, and he's gonna call somebody. You're still a stranger to the members of the lodge.
Absolutely. Well, even on that point of the internet, you think about internet dating. You know how
Is that something you've been thinking about, Bert?
Well,
I wasn't
Swiping left.
Yeah.
Brother Steve Sprott has told me all about it, so I've been learning through him. But it used to be a really taboo topic was internet dating. It'd almost be shameful to think that you met somebody through the internet, but now it's it's the way it's done. That's actually the only
So
way it's done.
Even worse still, that's how people are ending their relationships also. That's even worse.
With a text.
Well,
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said the word worse.
as I said earlier, from the moment I started in the craft, I embraced the changes, and I absolutely embrace what you're doing here. I think it's just a great idea because it will give the people that are interested in the craft something to listen to, information to garner, and I hope they want to join. I hope they do find a lodge. It's easy enough to do once they start. But if they're listening to this podcast, they already want to be in the craft. Come on, we want them.
Yeah.
The ritual is because this is what this point's about. What's the significance of the ritual? The ritual, as George said so eloquently, it helps you live your life. And from the good to the bad, it helps us have friends. It's easier to have friends. We don't come to lodge, as we talked about earlier. We don't show up at lodge to pick a fight.
Yeah.
We show up well dressed, wanting to have a nice evening. And I may not spend 5 minutes talking to Bruce in a lodge meeting. Maybe it's only 2, but I will look forward to it, and I will be glad that I'd done it.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll just sit beside each other in lodge. Good too. That's great. Not anymore. He's the master now, so we'll have to stay away from him.
Got those chains on now again.
But
Finally.
Well, the point that I made earlier about joining the craft and what a great experience it's been, one of the things that I often tell the new Masons that have just joined our lodge, you are going to meet people that will be friends for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You just may not know who they are yet. And that's a wonderful opportunity.
Yep.
No.
Well, what John just said about taking 2 minutes out of his time when he comes into a meeting and to walk across that room to say hi, immediately it brings back a memory of Right Worshipful Doug Hotham. Go
Good.
into any lodge, stick your hand out, and say hi.
That's right.
How are you, brother?
Yeah.
And then to circle back to some of the ritual talk we're talking about, George, you mentioned it earlier. I'm still fairly new into the craft. I mean, 5 years is not that new. I know I say it all the time, guys. You guys are laughing.
Here we go again.
But
Rookie card.
Did I ever tell you about Rosa
the
Colette?
ritual has brought me to become a better man because I now, sitting in the office that I've taken and progressing, you start to really understand the words that you're practicing and that you're perfecting.
Exactly.
And now
What chair are you now?
I'm sitting senior deacon and I'm preparing for junior warden and I'm already starting the lecture and those words are ringing so clear. But on top of that, it's something that we just discussed momentarily, not too long ago. I take that and apply it to my everyday life. And that's where I'm now starting to, I think, build that better man. You often hear, well, what's Masonry about? It's making good men better men. Well, how do you do that?
Here's
Through
how.
the ritual.
You're living proof.
Well,
Gino,
I hope you get yourself a parallelepipedon soon.
I want to comment on that because I've been obviously in lodge with Gino over the past few years and watched him progress with great mentors like the three of you guys that are here that are exemplary in your ritual work. Gino has taken that to heart, and this guy knows his junior warden's lecture in advance of even going in to junior warden's chair.
I got one more little end bit to.
But he's supposed to.
master
That's
there,
the
but we're there.
He's proud of that.
The ritual is cumulative.
Yeah.
And it's designed to work in a certain way. And if you're able to go through the chairs and learn work that's typically associated with those chairs, for example, the senior stewards should do the working tools. If you do that, that is a milestone. And you don't forget it.
No.
And I'll tell you one.
Asked at the drop of a dime the other day. Can you do them? Absolutely. They're here.
They are.
Always.
That's right. It happened to me in Wellington Lodge. I went in and they said the guy that's supposed to do the working tools in the second degree tonight's not here. Okay,
No problem,
and
got it.
you'll do them, won't you, John? And I went, sure I will. Well, I just let me sit in the corner because I haven't done them in years. But I did them.
Yep,
I did
comes
them,
back.
and I sat through the meeting and gave it some thought, and I did, I think, pretty good job.
I think you did excellent.
Yeah, and
I
but
know I was prompter.
George approved.
he was prompter, and he didn't have to worry about it. But the ritual is cumulative, and one of the great things for me, as district deputy grand master, and all the other things I've done in the craft, is to be at a lot of different lodges and to see people move through the chairs. And lots of lodges that I go to, and I go to a lot. I maybe once a year. I'm there for installation, so I watch them progress, and it's a real snapshot. Boom,
Click.
boom, they're the senior steward. Boom, they're a deacon. Boom, they're a warden. Boom, they're master. And it's amazing to watch them come out of their shell so fast, so rapidly, and they find themselves. And I've seen people go all the way up district deputy grand master, and then you really see them blossom. They just find their voice, and they find their comfort level. And being comfortable in a Masonic lodge, once you learn to do it in this blue room that we're sitting in, you can do it anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I've been to many places in the world, many lodges in Ontario. Pretty easy to be comfortable once you're good at it, because it's my living room.
Yeah.
And
It's home.
when I meet
home.
you, it's
Yeah,
your
it's home.
living room too. And it's your living room, and it's your living room. And we're all in our own living room. Isn't that kind of handy?
That's
I've been lucky enough to watch Gino come up through the chairs, through the progression through the officers' chairs for a number of years now, and it's a joy to see. Like you just mentioned,
Sure is.
so much of a joy. I think it's time you lose that newbie moniker.
Oh man,
Oh,
Bruce, we've been on him for months.
Hey,
We
I got
wont let
another
that
few
go.
months. Once I pass the 5-year
well.
bump, I guess I'm an old Mason now, all right? Okay?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Experienced Mason, all right?
It's funny you made that that comment. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to sit in the master's chair one night when our master was away on business, and it had probably been 8 years since I'd sat as master. And on that night, I'm about to open lodge with the gavel, and I look out and I see all these new faces, all these young faces of new Masons. And for that brief instant, I felt, oh my God, I've been around here a long time, haven't I?
You're part of the furniture now, Bruce.
But
Where do they
it
start?
was such a moment that you don't forget those things.
Yeah.
You don't forget them. It's just these little things that catch you and keep you coming back.
And
Oh, yeah.
there's so many things, we talk about learning the ritual and getting, more and more chunks of it under your belt. But there's different rewards for different people, the way that they approach it. If you're a historian, there's so much history that you can do further research on with respect to our ritual. If you're not into history, if you're just, a deep thinker, there's the Masonic philosophy that, you can understand a little bit better and try and bring it into today's world a little bit smoother.
Right.
There's, at its base level, if you learn a piece and do it well, you have an incredible sense of accomplishment.
Oh, the confidence boost. Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
no time for boredom
Yeah.
in masonry. No time.
And the ritual again has wonderful phrases that you can use in your everyday life that really helps. And sometimes, just to inspire others. But I've been called upon a number of times to do eulogies. And the third degree. Should Steve maybe leave? The third
Who's going to
degree-
run this thing?
Yeah, the third degree is full of lessons on that topic that can be made use of when you're called upon to do such a task. And if you're going to be called upon to do a eulogy, somebody's serious about your relationship to them.
Yeah.
Whether it be the relationship to the deceased or to the remaining, and you need to again prepare. And having the ritual, the third degree ritual to work with, especially the dark work, pretty neat. You've got some stuff.
Well, you have some knowledge to pull from.
Yes,
You have a
as opposed to
base.
being totally without any concept of what you should be even discussing.
Right.
You have some good stuff. And again, look in the book. It's written in plain text.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. And you don't if you think that it may be secretive, okay, don't tell anybody that you're quoting from the blackboard.
Yeah.
But you still need
They
it.
don't know.
They don't know it.
Yeah.
They don't know it. And if you're honoring someone, you don't have to tell them that you're quoting from the final charge, but the final charge is full of very eloquent phrases to say that somebody's a good guy. But see, that's the point of our craft. We're there to have a script that will help us in life. You're learning the Junior Warden's lecture. Once you learn that, it's going to be there, ready for you. 2 years after that, you're going to be master. Yeah. But you have to get those ritual pieces into your mind. Yeah. They will continue to help you in the craft. And you're doing a great job. I'm enjoying watching your progression. I'm watching everybody's progression. Somebody's stuck at the second degree, but don't point fingers.
Somebody at this table?
It's funny you mentioned that final charge. Even after 20 years, I hear it. There's pieces in that. There's certain phrases in that piece of work that still causes the hair to raise on my arms.
Yep.
It's that impactful.
And I got to tell you, when you get into there's concordant bodies. I've been in Scottish Rite a long time as well. They gave me my 25-year pin several years ago, and it expands on the ritual, and has more of it. Mm-hmm. But you have to have this before that makes a lot of sense. Same with York Rite as well, and other concordant bodies. There's lots to do. Lots.
Brilliant. Maybe one last question on this point before we finish off is, the three of you are fine ritualists. We've had the pleasure of watching you guys perform your ritual in lodge and other lodges. It's a thing of beauty, honestly. I guess in your experience as a Mason, how do you see ritual progressing in York District, for example? Is it improving? Is it the same? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse?
Interesting. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'd prefer to look at it on a lodge by lodge basis as opposed to a district basis. Mm-hmm. There are some lodges out there where you've got a group of guys who push each other. Nobody wants to look bad or unprepared compared to the guy sitting beside them. So they sort of drive each other. And yet you've got other lodges who are very nonchalant about it. It's all about the framework of the lodge. I think that the lodges that do well, they take great pride in it. Mm-hmm. And then they keep going forward. And the ritual to them means a lot. And there's other lodges out there that may just not had that door open to them yet.
Well, one of the things that as a district deputy grand master I got to do was to see all the lodges in York District, one after the other, do usually the same ritual, but I was at many of them several times, so I got a good cross section of it. And I can tell you that all lodges go up and down continually. And because it's the people that are going through the chairs, and it's what's happening in their lives, and it's how much assiduity they like to bring to their task. And some guys, they're gonna do a great job, and some guys aren't. And some guys have certain talents, and some guys don't. I often say about the master's chair. The master's chair will improve anyone that sits in it.
Absolutely.
But if you start out and you're a 20 on the scale, you're going to go up to 40. Well, if you already started off at a 40, you're going to go up to 60. And if you started at 10, you're going to go up to 30. The master's chair is not going to bring everybody up to the same level, but it is going to improve everyone. That's for sure. So sometimes you get a master who didn't work hard when he was the deacon and had a tough time with the junior warden's lecture and has a life that didn't allow that extra bit of work, just didn't, for whatever reason. But he still, if it gets to the master's chair and gets through it, it still will improve him. Mm-hmm. And again, that's another benefit of the ritual. So when you talk about York District lodges, they, as Bruce said, some up, some down, but it's a continual thing. All lodges do that, and they do it amazingly over the course of hundreds of years. You know, this is not a flash in a pan organization.
No, yeah.
So you're talking about the same ritual being done in the same lodge for years and years and years and years. I love going to installations. I go to many, many installations. I'm installing boards all over the place. To me, the ceremony of installation is like a piece of music, an old, familiar piece of music, a Sinatra tune that I love to hear. And so when something goes wrong in an installation, it's like a cymbal banging. It's like somebody dropped a trash can lid. It's terrible. But
Scratched record.
it's like a
George, we
scratch
gotta
record.
stop those symbols.
Yeah.
Note to self.
But when the evening goes smooth, it's wonderful. So consequently, when I'm sitting in an installation, I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
You know, I know that Sinatra is going to do that big note. But I'll tell you something. George teaches the ritual and the mechanics all over the province.
Yeah.
So he's going to give you an answer that's even bigger than your district. And by the way, when he sees it go wrong, he starts to get angry. So,
Well, and just to touch on that point a little bit, when I'm sitting in lodges that I know have come to a lodge of instruction and they're still not doing it right, I start to get irked a little bit.
Yeah.
So, there's the italics in the book of the work, and there's the red book for the mechanics for the officers. When you first become an officer, it seems a little bit overwhelming and daunting. Oh my goodness, I have to learn all of these different things, not just the words, but where I'm supposed to stand and how I'm supposed to stand and what I'm supposed to do next. And again, it just takes repetition. It takes a little bit of practice. And within the lodges, particularly in the last couple of years, I'm seeing a great deal of interest in a lot of the younger membership and the officers to want to learn how to do things properly, so that we are all doing things the same way, so that when you go to lodge in Aurora and you see a degree done, and then you go to a lodge in Barrie, it's exactly the same musical, if you will. And that, if we can manage to do that, that will make a lasting impact on the candidate and on the people that are in the lodge to watch the degree. It should be done the same way. It's been put together that way for a reason. The words are all lined up in a specific way, and things are done in a specific way to add meaning to it. And so the end goal is to have everybody in the province doing degrees in exactly the same way. The ritual is the ritual. It should be done properly. I hope that this inspires some people to, go that extra mile.
It's really interesting you raised the point about the resurgence of interest in some of the younger Masons that are out there. We certainly have seen that through the Warrens Association, even a lot more guys starting to come out and ask for those tools and be involved. And I think that's a great way, an eloquent way to describe it is that work is significant. The ritual is significant. I think it would be fair to say that from our conversation this evening, it is extremely significant. So, brethren, I thank you all for participating in this discussion in our part one. Stay tuned, as we'll be going on our next episode talking about Freemasonry and the relevance in our society today. So thank you all for being on the First Three Knocks.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the First Three Knocks. Happy to meet, sorry to part, happy to meet again.